Good evening, everyone. Merry Christmas. Great to see you all. You guys apparently were the wise ones because there was no room to breathe in here at the last service. So good for you. You actually have at least room to get a seat. That's awesome. So how's the whole shopping thing going? You got it all done? I know the people who came to the early service came to that service because they weren't done and they still had to go shopping. But I'm trusting that because you're here at this service that you are done your shopping and that everything's ready to go. How'd that go for you this year? Pretty good? I got to be honest with you, I struggle with the whole shopping thing. I'm just getting worse and worse at it all the time. I don't know what's cool. I don't know what's popular. I don't know what's in. I never know what to get anybody. Particularly, adults, okay, maybe a little bit, but particularly kids. I have no clue. Some of you know that my boys now are grown, they're in their 20s, so they're not sort of in that kid stage anymore, so I don't really know what's popular with the kids, and I feel clueless. Fortunately, I have a relatively small family. We have Nicole's side of the family. She has 3 sisters. They all have kids, but they're pretty much like our kids. They're young adults now, so I don't have to do the whole child thing with them, and then really the only thing we have left is my brother. I have a brother and sister-in-law, and they have 3 beautiful little girls. He's a little bit younger than me, and so his girls are still, younger, 1st, 3rd, and 5th, 6th grade, something like that. And to be honest with you, when it comes to trying to figure out what to get them for Christmas, I am doubly clueless because I never had girls, so already I'm at a disadvantage, and plus I'm out of that child-raising stage, and so I really have no idea. Honestly, I can honestly tell you, I do not know the Backstreet Boys from One Direction. Okay? No idea. To me, they all look the same. It all just blends in together. I know there's such a thing as American Doll girls or girl dolls or something like that, but I couldn't tell you Kit from Ivy, from Emily, or Bob. I just don't know. So I always feel that I'm kind of at this loss, and I really want to. I feel like as a good uncle, I ought to know my nieces well enough to know what they want, to be able to get them something that they'd like for Christmas. And so I always start out trying to figure it out on my own, and so I'll start looking on the internet, and, I'll Google it. What do 8-year-old girls like, or whatever. And that's no help. And so, eventually, usually about 2 weeks before Christmas, I will finally give up and just ask. I won't ask them, that would be inappropriate. But I will ask my brother and my sister-in-law. So tell me, what do the girls want for Christmas? Have any of you had to ask that question? Am I alone? Am I the only one who just sometimes doesn't know so I often find myself asking that question. What do you want for Christmas? Sometimes I just feel like I just don't even know where to begin. And my guess is that most of us in this room have at one time or another asked that question of someone else. What do you want for Christmas? Nicole and I have been married 31, almost 32 years. Getting to the point where we feel like we pretty much have everything. So it's like, what do you want? What's left? And so I find that often we're asking that question. What do you want for Christmas? Or we find that sometimes we're the recipient of that question. Somebody will ask us, what would you like for Christmas? Now, I got to be honest with you, in the old days, when I was younger, that was an easy question to answer because they had this. That was awesome. Okay, I don't know. Do any of you remember the Christmas wish book? The Sears wish book? That was great because, I never had to struggle with the question, what do you want for Christmas? I could sit there, we'd get that puppy in, September. I don't know, it came early. And I would just pour through it page by page and dog-ear certain page and circle things and arrows and all that kind of stuff. So it was so easy then because you had this great resource thanks to Sears and Roebuck that made it so much simpler to answer the question, what do you want for Christmas? I got to be honest, though, as I get older, the question gets harder. because it doesn't seem like I really need anything. I don't want anything. In fact, I find myself now asking a different question. I don't find myself so much asking, what do I want for Christmas? In fact, except for the girls, I don't really ask anybody, what do you want for Christmas? For me, the question has become, what does Jesus want? Because, let's be honest. It's his birthday, right? Maybe there's one or two of you in this room who will celebrate your birthdays on December 25th. But for most of us, Christmas is not your birthday, right? It's Jesus' birthday. So the question, choir, we really ought to be asking ourselves is, what does Jesus want for Christmas? What would he like from us? What gift can we bring? Like we sang in that song just a moment ago, what gift can I bring to the Christ child? And so I've been thinking about that a little bit this season. What do I think Jesus wants for Christmas? What would he like? Now, I had a couple of ideas that came to me really from Scripture. I'm going to turn for a moment to Matthew chapter 26, beginning in verse 35. If I can find it. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Well, anyways, how did I get in the wrong chapter? 25, not 26. That's what confused myself. See, even the glasses didn't help me. Beginning in chapter 25, not 26, verse 35. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you? And the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Here's my first thought. What would Jesus like for Christmas? He says right here that when we care for the least of these, when we reach out to those who are hungry, or who are homeless, or who are struggling, or who are lonely, or who are hurting or imprisoned, then we have helped Jesus. We have given a gift to Jesus when we do that. He says, when you've done that for those people, you've done it for me. So what would Jesus like for Christmas? I think one of the things Jesus would really like for Christmas is for us to reach out to those around us, particularly those who struggle, who are hurting, who don't have enough. Over this whole Advent season, we have been doing this thing that we've been calling a season of blessing. And each week during this season of Advent, each of the 4 weeks as John lit the candles for us, each of those weeks we would choose some special way that we could be a blessing to other people. And we really tried to live out that passage. We tried to find ways that in this holy season we could focus less on what we hope to receive for Christmas and more on what we can give. Less about what's in it for us, and more about how can we be a blessing to someone else. What would Jesus like for Christmas? Well, I think there's several answers, but I think one of them is that he'd like us to care about others. He'd like us to reach out to those who are hurting and needy, and he'd like us to help meet some of those needs. And then as I was thinking about it, I was drawn to a second verse from Luke chapter 10, verse 27. Jesus in this verse is being asked, what are the most important rules of life? They had all these laws, the 10 Commandments, and then out of that they built all these other rules and laws and all that. And so one of the Pharisees came to him and said, what is the most important rule of all? And Jesus responded in this verse. He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. What else do I think Jesus would like for Christmas? I think he would like to see us live lives marked by love. Love for God and love for one another. He says it right there. He says, this is how I sum up everything. All of the rules, all of the laws, everything you're supposed to follow can all be summed up in this. Love one another and love God. And so, what does Jesus want? He wants us to care for each other. He wants us to love each other, and he wants us to love God. But most of all, I think what Jesus really wants for Christmas is simply a relationship with us. I don't know if you've ever gotten to the point where the kinds of things you want for Christmas really aren't things at all. You know, maybe it's time with somebody. You know, I get to see at the first service a young woman who was a part of our congregation who moved down south with her husband in the service. And it was great just to see her again for a few minutes, you know. I got to reconnect to a few folks at the first service I hadn't seen for a while. Sometimes those kind of things are better than any material gift. And so what does Jesus want? I think Jesus wants for Christmas, I think he wants a relationship with us. I think he wants time with us. You understand that's why this happened, right? You understand that's why Jesus came. He came to be in relationship with us, to spend time with us, to be among us, to walk among us, if you will. I mean, prior to Jesus coming, there was this great chasm that separated people from God. You know, in the Old Testament, before the coming of Christ, they knew there was a God. They could see the evidence of God as they looked at the world around them. And they'd even had communication from God in the form of the prophets, who would sometimes share a message. They'd receive a message from God and they'd share it to the people. And once or twice in recorded history, God literally broke into the world and spoke. But for the most part, there was a distancing for them between God and human beings. There was this barrier, this great chasm between us. They knew God, they knew of God, but they did not feel as though they could have a relationship with God. Because really all they knew was the awe of God. They look at God's creation and they would just be in awe. There's no other word for it, for their understanding of who this God was. And really we can't expect anything less from them. If you think about it, prior to the coming of Christ, all they really knew was this great, supreme creator who put everything in this place, who built this world and called it into being with his word. And then they'd look out at the stars and the cosmos and the universe, and they would realize that this God made all of that. It never dawned on them that they could really have a relationship with this God. And that's why Jesus came. That's why all of this. That's why Christmas. That's why everything we celebrate tonight. This was when God, who had been distant, became Emmanuel. Anybody know what that word means? Emmanuel? God with us. When we sing that in the carols, you know, we sing that word Emmanuel often in our Christmas carols. When we sing that, we are talking about what it means. The definition of that is God with us. And so the very idea is that God, who was once distant, came down to earth, was born as a child, so that he could be Emmanuel. So that he could be God with us. And why did he do that? I believe he did that so that we could be in relationship. So that that barrier, that distance that we always felt because he was so huge and awesome, and we felt so small and insignificant by comparison to the universe, could now be brought down to size. He loved you so much that he was willing to step down from heaven and become a child, be born into this world and live as a human being and feel pain and be grieved and struggle and suffer and all of that so that we could be drawn near, so that we could be closer to him, so that that barrier, that gap could be bridged, if you will, and so that it would be possible for us to actually have a relationship with God through his Son, Jesus Christ. Honestly, I don't know what you want for Christmas, but I think I have an idea what Jesus wants. I think he wants us to be good to one another. He wants us to take care of each other, particularly those who struggle, those who are hurting. He wants us to love one another and love God. And most of all, I think he wants to be in relationship with us. That's all he's asking. He wants us to walk with him through life. He wants us to spend time with him. I mean, just like we would make any other human relationship, we can make a relationship with God. I mean, if you think about it, how do we have a relationship? How do we have a good marriage? How do we have a good friendship with someone? We do it by spending time, right? By investing time in that person, by doing life together with that person or that other. And so God can have the same kind of relationship if we are willing to just give him some of ourselves. If we are willing to give him some of our time, to open up our hearts to him, to walk through life with him, to pray, to talk to him. That's all prayer is. It's just an ongoing conversation with God. And so, I'm not going to ask you tonight what you want for Christmas. I don't really care. No, I'm not kidding. I don't. I don't care what you want for Christmas. Because I don't think that's the question. I think the question is, what does Jesus want for Christmas? And I believe what he wants is some of you. He wants some of your heart. In fact, actually, he wants all your heart. He wants you to love him. He wants you to be in relationship with him. He wants you to walk with him through life. And I'll tell you something. We may be giving him the gift, but we'll be blessed. Our lives will be so much better. You know, when you discover that it's actually possible to share your life with the God who loves us, it's awesome. It's amazing. And that, I believe, is what he wants from us. And so this is my invitation to you tonight. If you came here today and maybe you've never really felt as though you had a relationship with God, or maybe you have, but it's just become cold or a little distant, like that friend from high school you haven't seen in a long time or whatever, I believe what God is asking of you tonight, what he's inviting you into, is a renewed relationship, a walk with him. And honestly, I think that's all he really wants for Christmas. Would you join me in prayer? Lord, I'm sure there are some of us in this room who maybe have just kind of fallen out of relationship with you. Or maybe just never really knew and understood that we were able to have a relationship with you, that was possible. Maybe we, like the Israelites, just felt as though you were so great and so big and so powerful that you wouldn't want to be in a relationship with us. But now we understand through Jesus that isn't the case at all. That you came so that we could spend our lives with you, so that we could walk with you, so that we could relate to you and know you in the form of a human being through Jesus Christ, this little babe whose birth we celebrate. And so, Lord, if there be any in this room tonight who are at that place of beginning anew with you, starting that journey, walking through life with you, and I just invite them to open their hearts right now and ask you in. Open up and say, Lord, come into my life. I want to have a relationship with you. as much as I believe you want to have a relationship with me. And so, Lord, we give ourselves over to you, thankful that you love us that much. In Jesus' name, amen.